looking at pictures of Alok Sharma snuffling and snivelling all over the place in the House of Commons after J-Dog's big scheme went a little bit sideways. It is to be hoped, of course, that Alok Sharma doesn't have COVID-19, but that's not really the point, is it? The point is that the social distancing, the 2-metre rule, was clearly unobservable in the circumstances, and I still find myself marvelling, even after everything we've been through, everything we're still going through. The daily death rate in this country now is more than the rest of the European Union combined. These figures go up and down, but that I would have, if you'd said to me a year ago, even after Brexit had broken everything and reality had been completely subverted by all the lies and broken promises, if you'd said to me a year ago, there's going to be a global pandemic, we're going to be the worst country in the world at responding to it, at handling it, and the football scarves will still work. You will still have people cheering Boris Johnson, even as he tries to say that he hasn't actually been in charge since January. He only took charge on Monday or on Tuesday. I forget which day it was when he announced he was taking back control of the country's coronavirus strategy. I would have laughed. Even I, as an arch chronicler of the madness, would have balked at the idea that the madness would lead us that far. You'll have the worst death toll per million in the world. You'll have more deaths now in month 6 since the alarm went off than every other European Union country combined. You got Boris Johnson yesterday calling for European Union citizens to come back here because we need them to work, on the same day that they're setting up a committee to preside over the abolition of freedom of movement. You've got Conservative MPs boasting about being on a committee that is designed to reduce British people's freedom. You've got fruit rotting in the fields. And you've got the Prime Minister begging European Union citizens to come back here if they went home before the lockdown or they went home at the beginning of the lockdown. Please come back because we really need you. By the way, we've abolished freedom of movement because, fish. But even against that backdrop, the idea that the great and the good of the UK government at some point in the last month sat around a table in Downing Street and contemplated an epic operation. Not even epic compared to what you might do for a living, but compared to what Jacob Rees-Mogg has done with his life so far, essentially invest other people's money and then slice a bit off the top of the profits. Full stop, end of career. And the idea that somebody would sit there and say, I know who we should put in charge of this rather challenging and difficult logistical operation. Let's get J-Dog to do it. And on day one, it looks as if a cabinet minister has actually carried coronavirus into the Commons. Again, it is to be hoped that he hasn't. But even if he hasn't, the photographs of MPs bottlenecking at the bottom of an escalator, Brexit hardman Steve Baker filming himself describing it as a complete farce and then marching into the division lobby to vote for it. What are you voting for today, Brexit hardman Steve Baker? Oh, I'm voting for a complete farce. Well, I suppose, given your support for Brexit, at least you're consistent. It's hilarious, except it's also home.
And it's just going to get worse. You have to remember that Boris Johnson's trump card has always been Brexit, or at least the smoke and mirrors surrounding Brexit. Being able to lie to people, being able to convince people to vote for something that was against their own interests. And this pandemic isn't going to go away. We're starting to see the R number increasing in the north of England. Ironically, the constituencies that voted for the Conservative Party for the first time, in some cases for over 100 years. But if the pandemic is not dealt with in the right way going forward, and of course Boris Johnson's administration didn't deal with it the right way from day one, this is going to continually create a problem for his administration. Now, let's park for a moment the numbers of people who are going to die over the next number of months because of decisions taken by Boris Johnson. But politically, this is going to be extremely damaging. Support for the Conservative Party and Boris Johnson as its leader is going to continually decrease over the next number of months. And as we get closer and closer to a no-deal Brexit and the damage that that's going to cause, look, the UK is possibly confronting a scenario in December where the NHS is on its knees because of a a second or third wave of coronavirus because the first one wasn't put to bed. The NHS will also be under a great deal of strain because of the winter flu and the lack of funding that has been put into the NHS over the last number of years. And then, along with that, you're going to be facing a no-deal Brexit. Now, on the 1st of January, there will be shortages, there will be tailbacks. Many small businesses that aren't prepared for a no-deal Brexit will be not just facing complicated bureaucracy, but also the costs related to that. And to put the cherry on the cake, does anyone really believe that Boris Johnson is capable of dealing with this? Not just the coronavirus, which he has demonstrated a complete ineptitude, but also a no-deal Brexit. Does anyone truly believe that Boris Johnson is the person to get the UK a deal? Or if there is a no deal, will Boris Johnson be the one who will fix the problems that occur after a no-deal Brexit? Boris Johnson has a long history of not taking responsibility for his actions. So if the UK eventually does leave the transition period without a deal, and it goes terribly after that, Boris Johnson will have a list of people he wants to blame. Of course, he will not take responsibility for it. Now, there's also the possibility that Boris Johnson will be removed as Prime Minister before the transition period ends. And that still is a possibility. The Tories are tanking at the moment in the polls, and the Tory party will defend itself. So they'd be happy to throw Boris Johnson under a bus if necessary, replace him, and reset the system, hoping that the public see it as a page being turned on this terrible chapter in UK history. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks. Why not become a Patreon and enjoy access to our Discord server where we share news, chat, and have some fun? If you become a patron, you can also make video suggestions on topics that are important to you. Check it out via the link in the description.